Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Baron here, and yes, I picked the IL-2M Sturmovik right here. This was about the time that I was really trying to experience the yaks, kind of get an opinion on them, review them, but then I saw that this was my favorite map, Pearl Harbor or Port, and with its abundance of ground targets, and even naval targets, it is just ideal for a well-stocked ground attack aircraft, and that would be here the IL-2M. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a review and go over some cool historical stuff. Now keep in mind I am sick right now, so my enthusiasm may be dulled down a little bit, but we'll see what we can do about that. So first off, everyone calls the IL-2s the Sturmoviks, and that just means ground attack aircraft. But it got a very, the IL-2 was so well known and got such a reputation in World War II, both by performance and propaganda, that the name IL-2 was pretty much, for most of our eyes, was always considered that of the IL-2. So what makes this aircraft so great in the game is that you have 23mm cannons, rockets, and bombs, and you can carry all of that at the same time, so you can basically just destroy any and all ground targets. So, neat fact about this aircraft, it was the most widely produced military aircraft in aviation history. And while it was the most produced in aviation history, when Germany invaded Russia, Soviet Russia, at the beginning of World War II, for the Russians anyway, there were only 249 available to the Soviets. So that kind of sucks. Now what you're hearing right now is the tail gunner on the IL-2M, and that is what separates the IL-2M from the IL-2, which are both currently available at this state in patch 1.29 of War Thunder. And there may be more variants available in the future, because after all, it was the most produced aircraft in aviation history, so there's probably a number of different models and variants. Now, why did they add the gunner? Well, because this thing is slow and it's cumbersome. So basically any fighter pilot worth his salt would just get on the 6 of this thing and just tear it apart, because this thing would not be able to trick you off its 6. So they had the gunner, and the survivability went up. But poor gunner. The IL-2M and the IL-2s were known as flying tanks. That was one of their nicknames, and that was because they were very well armored. But the gunner didn't really get to appreciate the awesomeness of this armor. His little area was lightly armored compared to the pilot and the vitals of the aircraft. So that meant that his casualty rate was 4 times that greater than the pilots in the IL-2s. Now, something cool that I would like to see implemented is the IL-2 pilots, at the beginning of the war, they didn't really have any good tactics. There was no real tactics or training, but finally once they, through the trial by fire, they were able to figure out how to effectively use these aircraft. And that was kind of in more of diving bombing runs, as opposed to just flying horizontally and shooting their cannons in the sides of German tanks. And one of the weapons they came up with through necessity, because the rockets were notoriously inaccurate, and bombs, because the Soviet bomb sight in these IL-2s was also inaccurate, they developed these things that were called PTAB shaped charge bomblets, or the anti-tank aviation bomb. And these were shaped charges, very small, and they would drop a number of them so that they could effectively cover an area 70 meters long by 15 meters wide in what they called a fire carpet. And this basically meant, yeah, our rockets are inaccurate, our bombs are kind of inaccurate, but if we put this fire carpet out, our kill percentage on a German tank will go up. So you see me realizing in that instance right there that I'm going up against, heyo rocket kill, another IL-2, I decided to pull away because I am fully aware of the firepower that thing has when it is facing you. So let's see, some of the other nicknames of the IL-2s were, the Germans called it the concrete plane, the butcher, the meat grinder, the Iron Gustav, and Black Death. So this thing was feared by the Germans, to say the least. But how effective was it? Some Russian guy wrote a book, and he looked at the numbers. And basically the numbers work out to, for every single German armored fighting vehicle that was killed, there was about 10 plus IL-2 or IL-10s lost. So it may not be, there could be a little more. You have to read into statistics, because what's the definition of, you know, armored fighting vehicle? Is it just tanks, or does it include all armored vehicles? But the detractors of this aircraft were that it was obviously not a, despite what you're seeing in this video, it was not an air-to-air plane. That's not what it was used for, even though that's what I was using it for a lot of the time in this game. The only aircraft it was known to really kind of target were German bombers and German transport aircraft, and those were usually around the Stalingrad area. So let's see, running short on time here because this is a short video, because I've noticed ground attack maps just go that way nowadays. Let's look at some of the aces. First is Lieutenant Colonel Nilsen Stepanyan, and he killed 53 ships, 13 of which were solo kills, 80 tanks, 600 armored vehicles, and 27 aircraft in 239 combat sorties. And he was shot down by AAA, and while wounded, he decided to ram his plane into a German warship. Now, had he chose a plane, I'm sure the chat would have started spamming him, "Hey, you noob rammer!" But you know what? Luckily, back then, there was not a chat. So this was a quick little video, but basically that dogfighting I did in this game is not how this plane should be used, and it was not used historically, and that is due to the flight model. But it was fun nonetheless. I'm Baron, thanks for watching. Oh, my cannons weren't ready. Awareness, gentlemen. This thing is fast. You just gotta get a feel for the 37mm. And then you need a hit, and then they evaporate. See, look at that. That's what one machine gun will do. Not a whole lot. I'm gonna get into a little bit of a loop. Watch out for that kitty hawk. And get in behind them.